Open rate tracking, platforms for email insights. Why open rate tracking feels off in 2025. If your team is celebrating a 45+% open rate, but replies and meetings are flat, you're not alone. In 2025, open rate tracking is still visible in every dashboard, but it's no longer a clean read on human attention. Privacy features, security scanners, and bot activity can make a sequence look hot while pipeline stays cold. That doesn't make open tracking useless, it just changes what it's for. In outbound, we treat opens as an early signal that helps prioritize follow-up and diagnose deliverability, not as the final verdict on messaging. The KPI conversation has to move from "did they open" to "did we earn a reply, a meeting, or an opportunity?" This matters even more for teams running an outsourced sales team or working with a B2B sales agency, where reporting has to be consistent, comparable, and outcome-driven. Whether you're building an internal SDR function or evaluating an SDR agency, the goal is the same. Use email insights to create more conversations and booked meetings, not just better-looking charts. How open tracking works and how Apple MPP changes the math. Most platforms track opens with a tiny invisible image, a tracking pixel. When an email client loads that image, the platform records an open, and it may record multiple opens if the pixel is fetched multiple times. That basic mechanism is why open metrics are so easy to generate and why they're so easy to distort. Apple Mail Privacy Protection preloads email content, including tracking pixels, on Apple-controlled infrastructure, which can register opens without a human ever reading the message. Industry reporting in mid-2025 estimated Apple MPP accounts for roughly 50 to 60% of all opens, and that up to 60% of reported opens can be artificial once you include MPP and bot activity. For sales leaders, the practical takeaway is simple. Raw opens are directional, not absolute. Security tooling adds another layer of noise. Corporate filters can open emails to scan content and sometimes follow links to check for malicious destinations, which can inflate both opens and clicks in edge cases. That's why open-triggered automations like resend to non-openers or mark as engaged after 2 opens can backfire unless your platform flags likely MPP and suspected bot activity. Benchmarks. What good looks like when opens are inflated. In large, pre-inflation style B2B datasets, the median open rate still clusters in the low 20s. One widely cited benchmark shows a 22.8% median B2B open rate across 4.3 billion emails analyzed in 2023. At the same time, many 2025 global average open rate roundups land closer to 35 to 42%, driven in part by auto-loading behaviors. Both numbers can be true depending on client mix and how much Apple Mail sits inside your audience. The most important adjustment is separating benchmarking from goal setting. Your SDRs don't get paid on open rates. They get paid on conversations, meetings, and pipeline. For cold outreach, a good open rate is usually one that correlates with rising positive replies and meetings per 100 contacts, not one that merely ticks up because of privacy mechanics. Use this table to ground expectations, then calibrate by ICP, persona, and domain mix rather than chasing a universal target. And for this narration, we'll skip the table details entirely. Platforms for email insights. What B2B teams should actually buy. For B2B sales, the best open rate tracking platform is the one that connects opens to next actions, calls, replies, and meetings inside the same workflow. That's why sales engagement platforms like Outreach, SalesLoft, Apollo, Groove, and similar tools usually outperform generic email service providers for SDR execution. Inbox trackers can work for a small team, but they typically fragment reporting once you scale. When you're evaluating tools, prioritize per prospect timelines, sequence-level analytics, and CRM sync over flashy open charts. You also want MPP-aware reporting so your team can interpret spikes responsibly, rather than coaching SDRs to chase vanity metrics. If you run a cold email agency motion or manage an internal SDR pod, those capabilities directly influence how quickly reps can identify what's working and double down. The comparison below is a practical way to map tool category to job to be done for outbound. And yes, since it's a table, we'll skip it entirely here too. Open rates are a compass, not a scorecard. If they aren't connected to replies and meetings, they're just noise. How to use opens to drive meetings, not just prettier dashboards. The most productive way to use open tracking is as a prioritization layer for fast follow-up. When a prospect shows multiple recent opens, or opens plus a click, that's a cue to run a tight 24-hour play. Call, send a short bump email, and add a light LinkedIn touch. In practice, this is where open tracking still creates real leverage because it helps reps choose who to spend time on today. Reporting should stack outcomes in the same view: open rate, click rate, reply rate, positive reply rate, and meetings per 100 contacts. When those metrics move together, you've learned something real about message market fit. When only opens move, you may be watching Apple MPP or scanners do their thing. This is also why we recommend choosing winners in subject line tests based on replies or meetings, using opens as supporting context rather than the deciding factor. Privacy inflation doesn't eliminate insight, it just forces discipline. If you build your dashboards and coaching around meetings booked, you can still use opens to spot trends and triage accounts without misleading the team. For leaders managing sales outsourcing or pay-per-appointment lead generation programs, this approach keeps the reporting honest and the incentives aligned. Common mistakes we see and how to fix them quickly. The biggest mistake is judging SDR performance primarily on open rate. With MPP and bot activity, two reps can run equally strong outreach and show very different open numbers just because their territories skew toward Apple Mail or heavily filtered enterprise domains. Coach and score to outcomes, positive replies, meetings held, and opportunity creation, and keep opens as a diagnostic metric, not the headline KPI. The second mistake is running A/B tests that only look at opens. A subject line can win opens while losing meetings if the body doesn't deliver, if the CTA is weak, or if the opens are inflated. That's why multi-metric testing is non-negotiable. The goal is not curiosity, it's conversion, and the winning variant should be the one that improves reply quality and booked meeting rate. The third mistake is relying on disconnected tools for email insights and treating cold and warm benchmarks as the same. When tracking lives in an ESP, a plugin, and spreadsheets, leaders end up debating numbers instead of improving messaging, and SDRs waste time reconciling reports. Separate lanes for cold outbound, nurture, and customer comms, and consolidate around a sales engagement plus CRM stack so everyone uses the same definitions and the same scoreboard. An operating system for better email insights, tagging, alerts, and hygiene. Start by auditing every workflow that relies on opens, resends, routing, hot lead flags, and leadership dashboards, and replace critical triggers with click or reply-based logic first. Then standardize naming and tagging for sequences and subject lines so you can compare performance across personas and themes without guesswork. A simple taxonomy applied consistently turns your email insights into something you can actually operationalize and coach against. Next, implement hot activity alerts that are designed for sales motion, not marketing curiosity. The alert shouldn't just say opened, it should drive an action, assign a call task, recommend the next message, or surface an account to the SDR queue. This is especially valuable for a cold calling agency or teams running cold calling services alongside email, because warm email activity can directly improve connect and conversation rates when reps call while attention is fresh. Finally, tighten list hygiene without leaning on opens as the primary filter. Segment by hard signals, bounces, repeated non-delivery, 0 clicks, and 0 replies over a defined window, so you protect deliverability without purging prospects who look unopened only because data is noisy. This approach also supports relevance, which matters because research has found 73% of B2B buyers actively avoid suppliers that send irrelevant outreach. 73%! Next steps: what to implement now and how we approach it at SalesHive. If you want better reporting quickly, build one weekly dashboard that forces the right conversation. Opens, clicks, replies, positive replies, and meetings booked, broken down by sequence, persona, and rep. This makes privacy inflation obvious, and it keeps leadership focused on outcomes rather than activity volume. It also helps RevOps and frontline managers coach the few changes that produce compounding gains. This matters because sales productivity is still constrained by non-selling work. Research commonly cited in SalesOps discussions puts active selling time around 30% of a rep's week. The more your platform automates insight capture and turns signals into tasks, the more time your team spends on live conversations. That's a key advantage for teams looking to outsource sales, hire SDRs efficiently, or scale with a sales development agency model without adding layers of manual reporting. At SalesHive, we've built our process around exactly this reality. Open rate tracking is useful, but only when it's tied to clicks, replies, meetings, and pipeline. Since 2016, we've booked 100,000 plus meetings for 1,500 plus B2B clients by combining SDR execution with a measurement system that connects every touch to outcomes, not vanity metrics. In managed outbound, it's not unusual for well-targeted campaigns to see 45% plus opens. But we judge success by the conversations and revenue those campaigns create, whether the motion includes cold email, calling, or full B2B sales outsourcing.